At the end of the topic, you will be able to discuss the teachings of Confucius, understand the principles of Confucianism, explain the concepts of Zoroaster, and the impact of Zoroastrianism. A great intellectual awakening was seen globally in the 6th century BC. Zoroaster of Persia and Confucius of China brought about many changes in society. In India, people revolted against the existing philosophical principles and looked for holistic alternatives. The thinkers of the new movements were intellectual philosophers and were concerned with life as a philosophy of power and knowledge. Such thinkers were the Sramanas in India. They rejected the Vedas and condemned religious rituals. Their principles were not centered on God. Early Chinese were worshippers of spirits and ancestors, but there was a tendency towards monotheism in the form of worship of the supreme ruler or the spirit of heaven. Heaven was not a place. Heaven was the chief nature spirit, the forefather of the emperor, and the chief of the ancestor spirits. Confucius was not a founder or a reformer of any religion. He considered himself not a maker but a transmitter, believing in and loving the ancients. Like Gautama Buddha, he lived in luxury as a child. He had a restless and penetrating mind that would not allow him to remain dormant. Like Socrates, Confucius was a great teacher. He formed a school in which he taught history, poetry, and the rules of propriety. Confucius said, "A man's character is formed by the odes, developed by the rites, and perfected by music." Confucius emphasized more on a disciplined society and healthy social relations than on gods or religious rituals. Truthfulness and obedience were vital to a society. Confucius stated that those in superior positions like fathers, teachers, husbands, or kings had the responsibility of protecting and treating dependents in a fair manner. If they failed, there would be a revolt. Thus, Confucius spread the philosophy of a fair social order based on discipline and justice to all. The philosophy of Confucius dominated the thoughts of the Chinese for more than 2,000 years. In the history of civilization, Confucianism, Christianity, and Buddhism are the best examples on their efforts to convert the natural brutality of mankind into idealism. Prior to the arrival of Zoroaster, the Persians followed a socio-religious faith similar to the beliefs and practices of earthly Vedic Aryans. They worshipped numerous deities representing natural forces like Mitra, Varuna, and Surya. They practiced polytheism, observed elaborate, expensive rituals, and the priests exploited the people. Social unity, rational thought, and moral life were absent due to polytheistic faith and superstition. The Persian society was in ruins due to greed and selfishness. There was a need for a healthy philosophical base to redeem the Persian society from degeneration and chaos. It was at this time that Zoroaster or Zarathustra appeared in Persia and gave the Persians a better socio-religious order in the form of Zoroastrianism. Zoroaster was born around 600 BC in northwest Iran. He was the founder of Zoroastrianism. He was troubled by the superstitions, barbaric religious cults, polytheism, and moral degeneration in Iran. He was pained to see that his people could not discriminate between good and evil, right and wrong, individual greed and social need, and between faith and superstition. He asked the people to give up polytheistic cults and to accept Ahura Mazda as the only god representing good and right. Ahura Mazda, personified as sun, fire, and light, carries on a relentless struggle against the evil forces or asuras who represent ignorance, selfishness, and all vices. The central theme of Zoroastrianism is the struggle between good and evil. The struggle is manifested not only among humans but also in all natural expressions. To attain salvation in immortality, he asked people to be with the good and reject evil. His monotheism served the cause of social unity among Persians, and the moral base of Persian society was strengthened by his concept of good and evil. The Zoroastrian Ahura Mazda cult did not encourage rituals. Zoroastrians worship Mazda in the form of fire in their own houses. Zoroastrians are also called Parsis. They believe that the body is the only instrument of the spirits, so the dead body did not deserve any reverence or preserving. Parsis neither cremate nor bury their dead. They expose the corpses to disposal by nature. The corpses either decompose or are consumed by animals and birds. This system of disposal of the dead is considered as a rejection of superstitious practices centered around death and is a contrast to the Egyptian practice of mummification. Zoroaster's teachings are found in Zend Avesta, the holy scripture of the Parsis. Zoroastrianism led to social unity that brought about economic gain and political strength. Very soon, the Persians built a powerful empire. In the Middle East, the Achaemenid Empire emerged as the largest empire. In due course, superstitious rituals and priestly dominance crept into the Zoroastrianism system. The philosophies of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam were influenced by the Zoroastrian ideas of monotheism, the struggle between good and evil, and the necessity of humans identifying themselves with the good for salvation. In this topic, you have learnt the following. Early Chinese were worshippers of spirits and ancestors. Confucius emphasized more on a disciplined society and healthy social relations than on gods and religious rituals. Confucius spread the philosophy of a fair social order based on discipline and justice to all. There was a socio-religious faith that resembled the beliefs and practices of early Vedic Aryans in Persia prior to the arrival of Zoroaster. Zoroaster appeared in Persia and gave the Persians a better socio-religious order in the form of Zoroastrianism. The central theme of Zoroastrianism was the struggle between good and evil. The philosophies of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam were influenced by Zoroastrian ideas. At the end of the topic, you will be able to define Jainism, discuss the teachings of Mahavira. The need of the time was satisfied by the introduction of necessary changes by Jainism and Buddhism in the 6th century BC. These religions did not accept the doctrine of karma that propagated that man's destiny is predetermined by supernatural forces. These religions proposed that man's own actions or karman decided his future. So man can seek salvation not from religious rituals but by righteous behavior. Jainism is as old as the Rig Veda and was against Brahmanism. Jainism sought to make religion simple without irrational rituals and gave a new socio-religious code of conduct. Jainism derives its principles from 24 preceptors belonging to different periods known as Tirthankaras. Risabha was the earliest Tirthankara. Parsavnath, the 23rd Tirthankara, was a prince who lived 250 years before Mahavira. He became an ascetic and preached 4 disciplines to his disciples. They were non-injury to living beings or ahimsa, not to lie, not to steal, not to possess. In 599 BC, Vardhamana, the 24th Tirthankara, was born in Kundagrama near Vaishala in a royal family. Siddhartha was his father and Trisala was his mother. Vardhamana married Yashoda and had a daughter. Vardhamana renounced worldly life and became an ascetic after the demise of its parents. Vardhamana attained the Kevalanyanam or realization of ultimate truth at the age of 42. After this, he was called Jinna, conqueror of senses, or Mahavira, great hero. He went on propagating his policy to people and princes for 30 years. He was supported by powerful kings like Bimbisara and Ajatasattu of the Gangetic Valley. He founded Jain Sangha to spread his principles. He died at the age of 72 at Pava near Rajagriha. Mahavira had no faith in God or the Vedas. The soul suffers due to impurities caused by its contact with the matter and is born again and again until it is free from the cycle of births. He preached the Triratnas, right knowledge, right faith, and right conduct. Mahavira believed in ahimsa or non-injury to any living being. It was the main principle of Jainism. To stop even a small insect from being killed, the Jains began to cover their mouth with a piece of cloth. Care was taken not to injure any plant or tree, not to cause pain to men, birds, and beasts. He was against animal sacrifice associated with yagnas and against caste system. He said that everyone was equal. Based on ahimsa, he stressed that all human beings, irrespective of their birth, could attain salvation from the cycle of life, that is death, and rebirth by leading a pure and austral life. He advised his supporters to treat people of all castes and colors without bias. According to Jainism, moksha can be attained by observing the Triratnas, right belief, right knowledge, and right action. The code of conduct that Mahavira preached were non-injury to living beings, not to utter untruth, not to steal, not to possess, to practice celibacy or brahmacharya. Jains split into 2 major groups after the death of Mahavira, the Dingambaras and the Swetambaras. Dingambaras followed the extreme principles of Mahavira and the Swetambaras practiced the simple discipline of Parsavnath. The Jains used the language of the region to spread their messages. Native languages like Magadhi and Kannada thrived through their contribution. They also contributed to Tamil literature during the Sangam and post-Sangam period. Many of the Sangam ethical works, Silapadigaram, 5 minor epics, and Yaperum Kalam were authored by Jain scholars. The social, political, and religious lives of the people were influenced by Jainism. Jainism enriched literary and cultural fields. Anga, Upa, Anga, and Kalpasastras are some renowned literary works. Jainism was embraced by Chandragupta Maurya and Karavella of Kalinga. It was patronized by the Rashtrakutas of the Deccan and the Pallava king Mahendravarman of Kanchi. The Jains built many beautiful temples at Kanchi, Sitanavasal, and Kalugumalai. Temples at Girnar and Mount Abu also belong to the Jains. In this topic, you have learnt the following. Jainism sought to make religion simple and without irrational rituals. Mahavira preached the Triratnas, right knowledge, right faith, and right conduct. The most famous principle of Jainism was ahimsa. According to Jainism, moksha can be attained by following the Triratnas. Jains have contributed immensely in the fields of literature and architecture. At the end of the topic, you will be able to discuss the early life of Gautama Buddha, understand the teachings of Buddha, describe the 4 noble truths of Buddhism, analyze the Eightfold Path preached by Buddha. Gautama or Siddhartha, later called Buddha, founded Buddhism. Sudodana, the head of the Sakya clan, was his father and Maya was his mother. In about 567 BC, he was born in Lumbini in Nepal Terai. Siddhartha had a comfortable and happy childhood. He married Yashodhara and had a son Rahul. He was moved by human suffering in the form of old age, sickness, death, and disillusionment. At the age of 21, he left his wife and son to find a solution to the miseries of mankind. He wandered all over as an ascetic. This search was known as the Great Renunciation. Gautama spent 6 years as a wandering ascetic and had discussions with sages and Brahmins. Their teachings did not help Gautama in finding a solution. He then resorted to various kinds of self-torture to find the truth. He abandoned everything and went to Uruvela on the banks of Niranjana river and sat under a peepal tree or bodhi tree and meditated. On the 49th day of his continuous meditation, he attained supreme knowledge or enlightenment. Bodh Gaya was the place where he got enlightenment, and he came to be known as the Buddha or Enlightened One. He proceeded to the deer park at Sarnath near Varanasi and gave his first sermon, which is described as the Dharma Chakra Parvartana, or setting in motions in the wheel of Dharma. The royal families of Kapilvastu, Magadha, and Kosala were attracted towards Buddhism. In 487 BC, Buddha died at the age of 80 at Kusinagara. The Buddha did not believe in God as the creator or destiny maker. He taught Anatmavada, stating that there was no Atma, and Anityavada, or that nothing is eternal and everything undergoes change. He did not believe in the Vedas and Yagnas and rejected the caste system. He stated that man is the maker of his own destiny. The first sermon of the Buddha was at Sarnath. His teachings were simple and preached to the masses in their native languages, namely Prakrit or Pali, and not in Sanskrit. The fundamentals of his teachings are contained in the 4 Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. The world is full of suffering. All sufferings are caused by desire, ignorance, and attachment. Suffering can be removed by destroying its causes. To remove suffering, one must pursue the right path. This path is the Eightfold Path or Ashtangika Marga, which leads to salvation. It is also known as the Madhyamika Marga. To end suffering, Gautama Buddha advocated the Eightfold Path or 8 codes of conduct. Right belief, right thought, right speech, right action, right means of livelihood, right effort, right meditation, and right remembrance are the principles of the Eightfold Path. This Eightfold Path was the middle path between extreme asceticism and self-indulgence. The Buddha preached nirvana, the final goal in the life of a man. One can attain nirvana by removing desire. Prayers and sacrifices will not end desire. He laid importance on the moral life of an individual. According to Buddha, the present is determined by the actions of the past. A man's life depends upon his own actions. As his actions or karma are answerable for his suffering, he can attain salvation by perfecting his own deeds. Neither God nor rituals can give him salvation, and thus man becomes the maker of his own destiny. The Buddha neither accepted nor rejected the existence of God. Buddhism did not believe in the existence of the soul, and the Buddha emphasized the spirit of love. Love could be expressed to all living beings by following ahimsa or non-violence. Basic equality of all men was preached by Buddha, and he had no faith in the caste system. His unrestricted principles attracted downtrodden masses towards Buddhism. He laid down the idea of universal brotherhood and disapproved the supremacy of the Brahmins. The Buddha condemned rituals and sacrifices. He discarded the Vedas and stated that everything must be scrutinized and reasoned. He advised his disciples to lead an honest and disciplined life. The Sangha was formed by Buddha to spread his principles and serve the people. During Kanishka's reign, the Sangha split as the Mahayana and Hinayana sects. The Buddhist scriptures known as Pitakas are divided into 3 sections: the Sutta, Vinaya, and Abhidhamma. The existing social and political system underwent changes as a result of this intellectual awakening. These rational philosophies gave a better purpose for individual and social activities. In this topic, you have learned the following. Gautama or Siddhartha founded Buddhism. Bodh Gaya was the place where he got enlightenment, and he came to be known as the Buddha. Buddha did not believe in God as the creator or destiny maker. He taught Anatmavada and Anityavada. The essence of his teachings are contained in the 4 Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path.